Koenigsegg just dropped a bomb on us. They announced a V8 version of their Koenigsegg Gemera, which is a 4-door hypercar, and it has 2,300 horsepower. Let's take a closer look at what makes this car so special, and then we'll see how fast it runs a quarter mile. In their recent presentation, they announced their 800 horsepower electric motor, which will still be paired with their 3-cylinder engine they call the Tiny Friendly Giant. So this base model is going to have 1,400 horsepower combined, but the new option they announced, which completely replaces that 3-cylinder engine in the rear, is their flagship 1,500 horsepower twin-turbo V8, and that'll bring the total output of the Gemera up to 2,300 metric horsepower. So they basically took the V8 from the Jesko, which makes 1,500 horsepower, and they paired it with this all-new 800 horsepower electric motor, and then they went ahead and added all-wheel drive. So we're talking about almost 2 megawatts of power, all-wheel drive, and this car is ridiculous. Koenigsegg says the Gemera will do 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, 250 mile an hour top speed, but let's see how fast it is in the quarter mile by throwing it in the physics-based drag race simulator against some of the fastest cars in the world. We have the V8 Gemera on top and the Tesla Plaid down below. You can see they both launch incredibly hard. They're limited by traction, but then at about 100 miles an hour, the Gemera just keeps pulling, and it runs a quarter mile in 8 seconds, 8.34 at 182 miles an hour, while the Tesla runs about 9.3 at 152 miles an hour. This thing is absurd. Next up, we have the world record holder, the all-electric Rimac Nevera. This is going to be a half-mile race, so you can see more of the top end. We have the Gemera on top, Nevera on bottom. Same story, they both struggle for traction on the launch, and the Nevera gets off a little bit quicker. But then that V8 power in the Gemera kind of takes over, and it's still a pretty close race, but the Gemera is going to take it. It just has too much power. And if you're curious, here's a quick quarter mile with the V8 Gemera and the 3-cylinder Gemera, and you can see they get off the line the same. Again, they're limited by traction, but then that power in the top end is just going to go crazy. And they're both absurdly fast cars. They'll both do 8-second quarter miles with the V8 being in the low 8s. If you're curious about the battery pack in this car, it's a 14 kilowatt hour pack that operates at 850 volts. So using the performance metrics we know, we could assume 50% plus charge could provide peak power. Once it gets below 50, maybe power starts to drop off. So 600 kilowatts peak power divided by 3,600 seconds in an hour means this thing will use 0.17 kilowatt hours per second. So you take half the capacity, 7 kilowatt hours, divide by 0.17 kilowatt hours a second, and you can see this thing could operate at full capacity for actually about 40 seconds, which is plenty to do a top speed run. And then range, assuming this car uses about 0.35 kilowatt hours per mile, which is actually pretty conservative, this thing would have about a 40-mile EV-only range. And if you're curious about weight, they haven't quoted an exact figure, but they have mentioned 1.11 horsepower per kilogram, which would mean if you take 2,300 horsepower divided by 1.1, you get about 4,560 pounds or 2,072 kilograms. Let me know what you think about the Gemera below. Maybe we'll see a world record run in 2024. I'll see you guys next time.